Mega Man 03, originally released for the Game Boy Advance in 2004, played here off the recent Legacy Collection thing, is considered by fans of sorts to be the best of the bunch. Zero may have gotten the ball rolling, to some people at least, and 02 introduced bits to make it better, but third time is where things actually gel together and stuff, and it's the greatest game ever, or so I've been told anyway, but I guess I'm about to find out, so let's dive in. The story of Mega Man 03 continues where the previous game left off. Well, kinda, sort of. Obviously, some time has passed, we're still looking for that dark elf thing that was freed by obvious villain from 02. Now a lone cyber elf in the base, who does not deserve to be mentioned by name. And we have a new villain brought into the fold, a new human hybrid thing named Dr. Wile, or Dr. Vile, or Dr. Wily, Master Vile, Mr. Conehead. Whatever. Anyway, that's the thing, and pretty significant stuff happens in this third chapter without dwelling into spoiler territory. I'm debating whether I actually want to go there. We'll see as things move along. I'll say this much, however. I have been underwhelmed with a lot of the narrative bits in these X and Zero games, but Mega Man 03 is the first time where the ongoing narrative held some interest. Not the greatest thing ever, but it makes some semblance of sense. There's some twists and turns here and there, and I was actually intrigued on where things were going, so that's a step up in my book, but on with the rest of the game. Once again, Zero begins the game with his Buster Shot and Z-Saber weapons, only this time both weapons start off at full proficiency, meaning you could charge your attacks without hindrance, or combo slash to your heart's content without the need for star ratings, build-up, or grinding. I shouldn't have to tell you this because it's plainly obvious, but this is a change for the way the fuck better. Congratulations, Zero! It took you 3 games to ditch a star rating system you never should have had in the first place. A winner is you. So after all that intro stuff, you'll regain your shield boomerang gimmick, but as per tradition, you'll gain a new rod weapon in the form of the recoil rod, which is a fast melee weapon that, when charged, can deliver a blow that knocks targets back a great distance. Useful for flinging books off screen and possibly smashing them into other books for multi-kills. You could also strike a charged blow to the ground to propel yourself higher into the air, sort of like a makeshift pogo stick. This makes the recoil rod a fairly versatile weapon that, when used properly, can be useful in finding stuff normally out of reach. The Cyber Elf system has also been overhauled from the previous 2 games in that you no longer need a third party to do stuff like equip elves or feed them crystals. You could do that from your subscreen without hindrance. Cyber Elves now come in 2 flavors, Satellite Elves and Fusion Elves, or something to that extent. You can equip 2 Satellite Elves and they'll give you different effects without consequence, while only 1 Fusion Elf can be equipped, and using that knocks a couple points off your mission score. Some elves can also be converted from one to the other and that sort of thing, but you know what? It took them 3 games, but we're finally getting a Cyber Elf system that we could actually use without worry of consequence. And it sort of relates to the other new thing that 03 brings to the table. Almost every stage in 03 has these holographic looking doors that, when entered, will take you to cyberspace, which basically tints everything an ugly green color. Entering cyberspace effectively activates almost every cyber elf in your possession during your stay here, essentially acting as an easy mode of sorts. However, you'll eventually need to exit cyberspace because it won't let you progress past a certain point, usually before any boss fights. There is a bonus fight with Phantom that's only present in cyberspace that's worth getting, however, because it gives you a special foot part. Entering cyberspace has a negative effect on your mission score, which, once again, is worth keeping up since if you beat a boss with an A or S rank, you'll earn an additional EX move. And the EX moves in this game are really good, ranging from exploding charge shots to 1,000 slashes and such. It's almost worth it just to practice the levels as much as possible to maintain that high rank to earn these fun toys to play with, though there are elves that can boost your rank to an A if you want to use those. But even if you don't get an EX move, defeating certain bosses will net you equipable chips that you could apply to not only your body armor, but also to your head and feet. And they'll provide you with different abilities besides the elemental chips of the previous game. Some chips will give you bonuses such as added abilities like double jumps or auto-charging your weapons. Only 1 chip per part can be equipped, so naturally you'll want to judge which chips are ideal for which cases. These chips are also contained within secret discs that are scattered throughout the various levels, and these discs also contain the game's Cyber Elves, some bonus crystals, and other bits of information. Discs needs to be scanned before you can gain their benefits or lack thereof, which gives resident tech dude Servo something to do in this game. So I'm usually not one to buy into hype so easily. Someone can hype something up as this amazing thing and then I'll try it and it's like, meh. But in the case of Mega Man 03, when people say this is the best game in the series, there's quite a bit of truth to that because as far as I'm concerned, this is the peak of the series. You've got some really fun, challenging levels to go through. The various EX skills you can earn are genuinely fun to use. The parts system gives the gameplay a bit more depth compared to its predecessors, and having a Cyber Elf system you could use without fear of penalty is a godsend. Even the story that plays out is actually somewhat compelling, particularly with its world building and insight into the events that leads to the current world you're currently playing in. Certainly does a better job of moving the story forward than the first two games where stuff kinda happens and stuff. Mega Man 03 looks like Mega Man 02, which in turn looks like Mega Man 01. I usually say this in reference to the fact that 03 reuses some assets from previous games and then makes new material around that art style, and for what it's worth, the new stuff looks pretty damn good. The boss designs and the transformations are pretty sweet, the backdrops you explore look pretty good until you start applying a puke green filter all over the place. The intermissions are slightly improved with some bits of motion implemented here and there, and once again, there's a consistent performance with these games that isn't hindered by any slowdown. However, 03 does reuse more than a handful of sprites and sound effects. Some bosses and stages actually make a return from previous games, and they naturally fit in nicely with the rest of the new stuff. None of it feels really out of place. Even the final battle takes place in a familiar setting, and I guess we should touch on this for a bit. Spoilers for a near 20-year-old video game if you don't want to hear them. So the main antagonist you fight in 03 is an ancient exiled Reploid named Omega, who is eventually revealed to be housed in Zero's original body, because at some point, Zero's soul was transferred to a reproduction copy of said body, and the old body was used to house Omega, and then Zero blows up Omega because his heart's in the right place. A lot of people make a big stink about this because Omega is just a palette swap of Zero, rather than a new sprite based on Zero's original design from the X series, and thus the emotional impact is lessened somewhat. Look, I genuinely do not care. Zero's look changed because the art style changed, and the artist wanted a new look that fits with the rest of the cast. Zero and Omega looking exactly the same was done so they didn't have to work on new sprites. That's it. And quite frankly, if anyone cared about keeping Zero with the same look he's had since Mega Man X2, they would have done this from the very first game. And also, if this Zero was supposed to be in a new body as opposed to be a copy of his old body, the dialogue would have reflected that. It doesn't, so as far as I'm concerned, it's not a different body, it's a copy of an old body, they're supposed to be the same thing. Who cares? I'm killing this bastard. Digression over. Let's talk about more important stuff, like how 03 has some of the series' best tracks, covering a wide range of themes from slow and suspenseful to fast and energetic. Only a couple remixed tunes or reused tracks from previous games are featured, and those are fine, but it's the new stuff that's really good, almost to the point where I don't think there's an actual bad track to be found in the game, and even the game's weakest tracks are a pretty good listen. Great elevator music, superb final boss theme, couple great stage themes, and none of these tunes have notes that hurt my ears despite using the same instruments as all the previous games. All really good stuff. Oh, there's some sound effects and vocal bits as well. That's fine too. There's actually a slight improvement in the voice clips that they don't sound too echoey or anything like that. You hear some of that in 02, but it's more prevalent here, so that's something, I suppose. Mega Man 03 is the peak of the Mega Man Zero series. There's no hyperbole behind that statement either. This is an excellent entry in the series, and hell, I'd go so far to say it's probably up there as one of my favorite games in the overall Mega Man franchise. The levels are fun, the gameplay is tight and deep, the mechanics are refined and fun to use, the narrative is actually quite engaging for once, the platforming is solid, the action is non-stop. Holy moly, this is some damn fine robot busting action that I missed out on the first time, but it was well worth the long wait. Nowadays you got the Legacy Collection out there so you could sample all the games, so it's kind of a moot point, but if you could only play one Mega Man Zero game in your entire lifetime, then Mega Man 03 is the way to go. In fact, forget the other games, just stick with this. Spend however much money it costs to buy that collection just for Mega Man 03. Because let's be honest here, that's the only one that really matters. Oh wait, there's still one game there, isn't there? Oh shit. Oh, fuck me.